Michael Carnevale is Branch Manager and Financial Advisor. Securities offered through Raymond James Financial Services Incorporated, 400 Southbridge Street in Auburn, Massachusetts, 1-800-657-9126. A member of FINRA SIPC and are not deposits, not insured by FDIC or any governmental agency, not guaranteed by Webster 5 Cent Savings Bank, and subject to risk, may lose value. Webster 5 Cent Savings Bank is not affiliated with Raymond James Financial Services Incorporated. The information contained in this report does not purport to be a complete description of the securities markets or developments referred to in the material. The information has been obtained from sources considered to be reliable, but we do not guarantee that the foregoing material is accurate or complete. Any information is not a complete summary or statement of all available data necessary for making an investment decision and does not constitute a recommendation. Any opinions are those of Michael Carnevale and not necessarily those of RJFS or Raymond James. Expressions of opinion are as of this date and are subject to change without notice.
This is Richard Morchoe, and privileged to have with us again this month Mike Carnevale, Conversations with, and he will tell us economically where the puck is headed as we skate down the fiscal ice or something. Well, Mike, it's been quite a month. The last month, February, was, as they say, interesting times.
It was. I think the puck is in the stands. It's not on the ice right now.
Somebody, okay, so in our little hockey game of life here, okay, so it wasn't very pleasant. It turned around the year.
It did.
The year was, if you remember January, Mike was, last February's show when we discussed January, Mike had a bigger smile on his face
than we have today.
Yes.
Yep. February was a down month.
Down month.
You know, and it has caused the year to be down.
Yeah.
You know.
What do you think? Do you have any insights that why it went down so quickly?
Well, I think what a lot of people are saying is it's the fear of more interest rate hikes than maybe you thought a month ago. People thought a month ago. And that had to do with some inflation numbers that maybe aren't falling as fast as people hoped they would be, or looked like they were. The rate of increase.
The rate of increase
right.
Did not fall as fast.
Correct.
But it hasn't been falling at all.
No.
For quite a while now.
Right. It's the rate of increase.
I think, would you say during January, people were looking on a brighter side, and February they just gave up looking?
I think that's probably true. I think people saw that the Fed now was reducing rates by less than they had been, raising rates less than they had been. So that kind of fed into maybe they know more, something that we don't know, and a little more positive outlook, and then that kind of hit the skids in February, and so that's why we are where we are. I think today, now it's going to take, reconvincing to get it going back in the right direction.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody. This is good. If you decide you want a different job, I think an English teacher might work for you. Reconvincing. I like that. All right, now the Dow fell from 34,000 to under 33,000.
Correct. Yep.
Lowest level of the year, 32,657. Next support is under 30,000 from last fall.
Right. Well, we had that big run up in December.
Mm-hmm.
That came off the big decline in September, which got the Dow down to 29,000 something. Then we had that big rally, which continued into January and now has leveled off. I mean, we got over 34,000, back in end of January, and that was only 2,000 points from an all-time high. And that seems like so long ago, because in the month of February, we lost the 34,000, we lost the 33,000 level, and we ended the month at the low point for this year, as you had said, 32,006 something. So, there was a lot of, if you look at charts, there was a lot of support at 33,000. So that has now been broken. And so, well, where's the next possible stop? The next possible stop really isn't until those lows in the end of September, when things looked really bad. And then just as, people thought the world was coming to an end, you had the massive rally that went from 30,000 to 34,000. So, I mean, the worst case things could be is you could go all the way back to the September 22 low. Right, that would be the worst.
That would be the worst
case.
That would be the worst for next month, but it could go even if horrible things happen.
Sure.
So there's always another worst case, always another better case.
Right.
But
But that would really be like the worst possible case. Could happen, but probably not going to.
Would you be, if it really goes under 3,000 and then starts hitting those supports, do you think you would be running off to Western New York?
Probably would have already been there. Probably would have already gotten there.
Well, who expected it to go so good in the last big markets?
No.
So, well,
the big thing is, I was looking at a chart because, economic people love charts.
Oh yes, they do that.
So I was looking at the chart for the past 40 years. You're just kind of looking at it because they really had nothing else to do, right? And interestingly, the market drops during every recession.
Yes.
And then you come out of the recession and it makes a higher high. Then the recession comes and it drops, and that recession ends, and before the next recession begins, it's at another higher high. So long term, the trend is up.
How much of that is a function of inflation, though?
Well, I think it probably is. I mean, inflation affects everything.
So that higher high is just an adjustment for what the dollar itself has lost. Sometimes, not.
Sometimes.
I mean, it doesn't mean it's manufacturing. Climate shit could turn around and be beautiful. I understand that.
Right.
But how much of that is the function of inflation?
Some, but not a lot, because if you look at the long-term return of the stock market, it's 8 or 9%. If you look at what long-term inflation is, it's probably half that. So it's some, but not all.
Long-term inflation?
Yes,
I can show you. You want to see a chart on that?
4 or 5%.
But you remember the value of the money. You're also taking into consideration that it is cutting what some of that increase in the market.
Yep.
Is real, that's
Right.
more manufactured.
Right.
But some of it isn't. Some of it is that inflation.
Correct. Yeah. So maybe half of it
so
is inflation related.
And the inflation is always there.
Yeah, but
but the growth comes in spurts.
correct. But over a long period of time, the growth outpaces
Everything
the inflation.
is over the same time.
Right.
Inflation over time, growth is over
Right.
time. So and the cumulative aspect of inflation is that it is different from there's not really a cumulative effect of the growth itself, but the cumulative effect of the inflation is the dollar gets worth less and less.
Yeah, but that only affects people who, and that's why you have to be in the stock market, because the long-term return, the only way you'll beat inflation long-term is to be in the stock market. The reason I think it's affected, as you had said, people in general, is because not enough people are in the market. So they're not earning enough to beat inflation.
This is a civilizational problem in that, most people, their 401ks, their IRAs, probably kind of indexed a little. But most of, people don't go crazy and say, for the same reason they don't go to Vegas. It's only a small minority of the population that goes to Vegas and blows the wad. That they catch on that they need to be in the broad market.
Yep.
But there's a population out there that aren't.
Correct.
And that's why, and these people should be able to count on a currency being stable. They are the ones who are being betrayed by this. There's a lot, most.
Yeah, but some of it, right? They're doing it to themselves. You take a look at, people who contribute to 401ks, right? Vast majority of people are not contributing enough. So, that's.
Do they have it to contribute?
Yep, they do. You just people have to adjust their lifestyle to their income. And that's where I think a lot of people, and we're talking generally now, where a lot of people, don't want to sacrifice because they feel they shouldn't have to. And so...
But how about people who don't have it?
Well, there's always going to be a group of people who just don't have it.
And in inflation, you can have a heck of a lot of people in a situation where are in a recession, let me put it this way, who had it and now are the proverbial paycheck to paycheck, if they even have a paycheck.
That's true.
So
that's true. But
you're a sharp kid. You took economics. A lot of people aren't. Right now, we've seen, we talked about how, I think we mentioned Salesforce, a big company laid off a lot of people. It seems like this all started when, what's his name, Musk, threw a huge amount of people out the door at Twitter.
Yep.
And everybody else started saying, you know what, we don't need these people. They had nice little offices, they had nice little cushy remote. I get my Starbucks in the morning and do my work from there.
Yep.
They don't anymore.
No.
And it's just too many of that type chasing whatever jobs are out there.
Yep. Yeah.
So they are not contributing, and that's not going to panic them at Fidelity and Vanguard.
Right.
But it's not good.
No, but they weren't. It's sort of like saving for a rainy day, right? When they were sitting at their desk with their Starbucks, they weren't planning for the rainy day.
Are you planning for a rainy day?
Well, everybody's different, right? Some people go to extremes. I'm probably more on the extreme side, so I'm probably not typical.
You are really heavily ready for that rainy day.
You never can tell, right? But yeah, I would think I look more at what's the downside as opposed to,
Well, you've studied
what happens. A lot of times people don't say, hey, I know everything's going great right now. Have you ever thought about, what if it doesn't continue like that? And most people say, oh, but it's going to, I got a great job, and I'm in demand. I understand you are, and I understand that you're going to be the last person on earth working, because you'll be the last job to be eliminated. But what if it doesn't work out? Nobody looks at that. I hear a lot of people sometimes saying we're going to do this, and this, and that, and then you always you can stop them in the tracks, right, by saying, well, I agree with you, but what's the plan if it doesn't happen? And a lot of times the answer is, it's going to, though. I understand it's going to, but have you thought about, what if it doesn't? Then you get no, I really haven't. Okay, so that leaves you really exposed at some point.
Which is my point.
Right. So you got to prepare for.
Yeah, but if you have a society that doesn't, I mean, we're not all Mike Carnevales.
No, but I think that's a lot has to do with, the failing of whether it's the education system or I don't blame the government because government can't save everybody, but it's probably the education system.
Which is mostly government.
Yeah.
So you're blaming the government.
Well, the education part of it. And I think a lot of it is some people don't want to hear what they don't want to hear. There's a lot of selective hearing.
Well, Mike, well, even I can find something you don't want to hear.
Sure, absolutely.
So, yeah, we're all like that.
Of course, yeah, definitely. But you got to kind of force yourself to say, well, what if something else doesn't? Because yes, I understand it's always going to be great. It's always going to go up. But if it doesn't, what's the plan? Well, and a lot of people don't have the plan. Don't have, they keep leveraging until it's over. I mean, you hear. I mean, in the course of the day, you hear a lot of things, right? Oh boy, this whatever administration. Oh, I'm making this much. I could just barely break even. Well, person's making a lot more than the average person. So you can't blame. You're living beyond the mean. Everybody wants to try to.
How about just getting a mortgage? Is that living beyond your means?
Oh no, but it is if you can't afford the size of the mortgage you want. It's sort of like.
What if even a small mortgage is difficult?
Well, then you have to find a way to get it, either a second job or. We've had this discussion before about. Oh sure.
The unemployment is low. Everybody's got a job. I know I have 3 of them. That type of thing. So it's not,
No. I mean, these are all just numbers compared to prior numbers. I mean, it doesn't mean it's good, and it also doesn't mean it's bad. It's just that, I would never consider this, that, or the other thing. Okay. Number one, you're not entitled to anything, and secondly, you can't afford it. So, well, then I would never. You hear these people. I'm not talking in generalities, but you hear people saying, "Oh, you live where? Oh, I would never live there. I want to live in XYZ community." Okay, it's good. You can't afford it. So, is that anybody's fault? No. You can do 2 things, right? You can earn a lot more money to be able to live there, or you can sort of operate within your own means. And somebody says, "Oh, that's a shame. That's a shame. You're in a very small house." Huh? No, it isn't. It's not a shame. That's what you can afford. You're living within your means. That's a lot better than being highly leveraged, where if things don't go perfect, you're back at the bottom of the rung. I mean, the answer's easy, right? Contribute as much as you can to your 401k. Stay invested in, diversified holdings of high quality, and don't try to time things. And if you look at all the charts over 10, 20, 30 years, you'll be okay. But people don't want to do that. They, well, things are really bad now, so I pulled back, Oh, that's good, yeah. When did you get back in? Oh, well, when it looks better. Okay. So you're getting in after rises, you're getting out after declines, and after 40 years, right, you come to somebody and say, well, I was only able to save this amount, and I got to make this last. it's like, you know, you can't do everything, right? So you want to, you can't do everything.
Again, I want to make sure.
You cannot do everything.
Okay.
So if you do one thing, yes, that means you can't do the other thing.
Okay.
And it's all depends on what you want. I find too many people want to do everything. They want it all. Can't do it.
Well, we do have to get on to that. I mean, this is really for another discussion, because it's thought about 20 arguments, but we do have to get to the technical. Like, I'm just saying this now.
Yes.
My son is in a culture where they're trying to start their new businesses.
Mm-hmm.
There is no extra money.
Right.
What should they tell them all? Don't start the
Oh,
business.
no.
Okay, so there's
Absolutely not.
There's the thing there. Not everybody can, and if you're earning money and you just got your your paycheck, put things away. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's generally what we're talking about.
Okay, but all right, short-term sentiment weakened. Yeah, didn't it?
It did. Yep. And
The
You
moving
know,
average, yeah. Go ahead.
part of the reason why prices have declined. Yeah. They've gotten a little bit better toward the end of February, so hopefully we can stem the decline here and make March to be a pretty good month. Historically, March is a better month than February is historically, so we got that going for us.
Okay.
I believe March is ranked in the middle of the pack, whereas February is generally one of the worst months. Historically. So, there's some reason for some optimism.
And the volatility is
Gotten higher, which is good. It means there's more fear, more concern. That usually happens, after prices have fallen.
and the oscillator.
Talking about support resistance, that's low now, and we that's kind of confirmed by the fact that the Dow is broken below its support level, which is 33,000. So there's some, slightly positive things there. I mean, I wouldn't say it's overly positive, but just slightly better than middle of the road.
Well, these things, when they're perfect, fear and greed, you kind of feeling that they're predicting that the bottom, a bottom is kind of
Coming, correct. And it probably not at that level yet, but
okay.
certainly better than a month ago.
All right, why don't we skip to the IMF there?
Well, a lot of people are talking about, recessions and whatnot, and it may ultimately happen. But, this past month, the International Monetary Fund raised their forecast for global growth from 2.7 to 2.9. So they expect the global economy not to be in a recession. That's a positive, and they think next year will be slightly better than that. So they could be right, they could be wrong, but, it's another piece of information that says, yeah, we may be in a recession, but, here's some other stuff that says some people don't think we're going to be in a recession.
Okay, the Fed increased the Fed fund rate 25 basis points.
Right.
So we're not stopping this. It may not be 75 basis points, but we're not stopping it. So,
No,
yeah.
and even the Fed said when they had their meeting, their press conference after that meeting, that they don't see any rate cuts this year.
Not a wicked shocker.
No. Nope. And so, and they also said that inflation, the rate of increase is decreasing, but they think it's going to take a long time to get back to, the level they want to see it back at. So that kind of spooked some people into thinking, well, wait a minute, maybe there are more rate increases than we thought a month ago. And that kind of all built into that. They meet again March 22nd.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of talk that, it's going to be a half a point again, back to the half point, as opposed to a continuation of the quarter of a point. Time will tell.
Okay. Now the interest rates, sometimes you have a whole raft of them, but it's just two. England hiked.
Not many banks met in the month of February. England raised, Turkey, cut again, but, you throw that out there because it was a central bank that did something, but Turkey does their own thing, and this time they've had so many rate cuts. This one now they're saying, well, it's because of the earthquake.
Consumer debt at an all-time high.
Correct.
Wow, 17 trillion.
Yeah, that's a big negative. I mean, so much for people pulling back because of the pandemic, and people learn to live with less. No, it's back to all-time highs. So that's not good.
No. Oil under 80 a barrel.
Yeah.
Rigs at lowest level since July 8th.
Yeah. No surprise there, right? As oil falls, what do companies do? Less drilling. So, although, we've kind of survived the winter with heating oil dropping and the price of gasoline dropping and oil dropping, the other side of that is, the number of drilling rigs is also dropping. So at some point that's going to all catch up again, and you're going to potentially see prices go back up.
Now we're going to the science.
Well, this is the reason that the market was down
Yes.
in February, and we got that confirmation early in February.
Super Bowl.
Yep.
Philadelphia versus Kansas City. The market is up 75% of the time when an old NFL team wins. Philadelphia. The Eagles are an old team. Kansas City is a relative newbie. Kansas City won, and Philadelphia loss means it's not good for the market.
Yeah, it's a it's a lower increase.
Okay, people,
Essentially.
you can now go into the bunker. It's over for the year.
Could be.
The economy, inflation, it's mixed news. Consumer prices up 0.5%. That's up, folks. It's not, it may be up less fast, but it's still up. 6.4% for the past year, lowest rate increase. Is that
Correct.
right? Since October 2021, still an increase.
Right.
So we haven't beaten this stuff yet.
Correct.
The core, less food and energy, when the Fed looks up was when the Fed looks at, that was up 0.4%, 5.6 for the percent for the past year, lowest increase since December
Right.
2021. And the producer prices, January producer prices up, lowest since March 2021, still all kind of up.
Right.
But-
I mean, the rate of increase hasn't gotten better.
The rate of increase hasn't been better.
Yeah, it hasn't slowed it down.
It hasn't slowed it. It hasn't made it better.
Right.
But if things were to go forward correctly, eventually it would go down. We hope.
Right. Yeah.
All
Ideally.
right. What?
Ideally.
Ideally. All right. The leading economic indicators, January, were down 0.3%, 10 components to give a snapshot of the economy. This indicator predicts when a recession begins after 3 straight negative readings. January was the 11th straight negative reading, but the smallest. Now this is really putting a shine on the sneaker.
Yeah. Well, I mean, moving in the right direction.
It's a recession or it's not a recession.
Well,
Why aren't they saying it's a recession when this has been going on 11 months?
right. Well, because it hasn't been. I think it hasn't been confirmed with some of the other stuff, like unemployment, job creation has been tremendous. Jobless claims are at
But this is the only time
Really lows.
they've ever not said it's a recession
right.
after 3 straight months.
Right.
So,
Because usually it's confirmed with higher unemployment and
but they never said that before, but it's usually, it's
right,
yeah.
right, yeah. I mean, you look at the employment side. Fewer and fewer people getting laid off. More and more people are getting jobs. So that it's possible the leading economic indicators this time around are not as important.
To whom?
To being able to predict a recession.
To the predictors.
Right, yeah, it's possible. Because if you had said this, if you had a blank page and you just had this leading economic indicator, and you said, take a guess at what the labor market looks like, you would never guess these numbers. You wouldn't. You'd say, hey, leading economic has been down 11 straight months. What do you think has happened to unemployment? If you opened up a textbook, it would say, oh, unemployment has really gone up.
Now, not to get into politics here.
Yeah.
But if Trump were in office, do you not think people would be in certain money centers wouldn't be screaming, "It's a recession"?
It's funny. Yes, half the people would.
Why aren't half the people saying it now?
Oh, they are.
Who? Other than me, of course.
Yeah, I would say the anti-administration people.
Who are they? No, they're not the New York Times. They're not the Wall Street Journal.
No, they would be the I don't know what
the people out Nowheresville.
The Trump side, whichever group that is, are saying, "Oh,
Can
things are
name
really
one
bad."
person who's saying it's a recession.
One, I wouldn't know who that would be, but
But you would know if it were a recession and Trump were in office, and we'd hear it from being screamed in the town.
Most likely, yeah, because there's a more liberal bent, right, to news. So.
What kind of bent was that?
That's a more liberal bent, I would say. So sure.
All right.
Sure.
Jobless claims, looking good.
They keep dropping now.
Dropping.
Lowest since almost a year ago. In the face of all this negative economic data, and these indicators, that's hard to believe, right? Same thing with employment report, the other side of the labor market, right? Number of non-farm payroll jobs increased, 517,000. Of course, the negative side is going to say, oh yeah, but they're all low-paying jobs. They've always been low-paying jobs. They've always been the same mix of jobs. So you're comparing the same numbers. It's just that, you want to paint the good picture, you can selectively pick. You want to paint the bad picture, you can selectively pick. The numbers speak for themselves, right? There's more jobs being created and less being laid off. That doesn't sound like a recession. And that's why that leading economic indicator, there may be something wrong with it this time around. It's possible.
We have gone over our time.
All right.
And all I can say is, I really wish I knew how to play an instrument, because I would want to accompany on happy days.
Well, I think it's going to,
Thank you, Mike.
future's always bright.
Okay, this has been the Longer Report, Conversations with. Thank you, Mike. Things will be even better next month.